How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Down podcast, where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Welcome to our Week 1 coverage. This is our first video amidst the 2020 regular season. This is a series we do on our show called Meet the Opponents, where we break down the opposing team that the Bears will be playing to kick off the week. So today we've got the Week 1 opponent, the Detroit Lions. Welcome back to the show, though. I am your host, Chris Maltby. Today I am joined with my co-hosts, Parth Shah and Jaylen McClinton. How's it going, fellas? How does it feel to be back finally?
This is about to be fun. I'm excited to record about Week 1. It's here. I'm just like super overwhelmed. I'm just like super excited. Losing my words here, but yeah, it's just a week away. Next Sunday, we'll know if the Bears won or lost. At this time, we'll be watching Tampa Bay and Drew Brees take it off on Sunday night, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm still surprised that we're actually talking about football like on time. Honestly, I didn't think the NFL season was going to start on time due to, all the stuff that was going on in America. But thank God that we are finna talk football, and I can't be more excited.
Absolutely. And today we are joined by our first special guest for Meet the Opponents Week 1. He's a Detroit Lions beat writer and the managing editor for SBNation's Pride of Detroit. Welcome to the show, Jeremy Reisman. I hope I got that right.
Yeah, good job. Thank you for having me. I'm too very excited to talk football. So any platform that I get, I jump at the opportunity right now.
No kidding. Let's get right into it. So looking at the Detroit Lions, obviously an NFC North rival, went 3-12-1 in 2019, finishing last in the division behind the 8-8 Bears. Matthew Stafford, yet again, was faced with an injury-riddled season, going on IR in December after missing the final 8 weeks of the season with a back injury. It's unfortunate that Stafford went down because he was arguably playing MVP caliber football before then, throwing for 2,500 yards, 19 touchdowns in 8 games. So Lions, here we are again. The Bears have beaten them a couple times in a row, but before we get into the Lions specifically, Jeremy, we got to ask you, because it's been all the talk in Chicago recently. Obviously, Mitchell Trubisky was just named the starting quarterback for the Bears, so does this surprise you at all? And what do you think about Mitch coming into Ford Field yet again? Because he's had some pretty good success against the Lions in recent years.
He has, and he's not alone in that. There's been a lot of quarterbacks that have gone into Ford Field and kind of dominated the Lions defense ever since Matt Patricia took over the team. But I would say it's a mild surprise. I did believe that Nick Foles was being brought in as legitimate competition, and maybe he was. But going in, my preconceived notions of both quarterbacks was that Nick Foles was the better guy, not by a lot. But they're sticking with their guy, and Trubisky is everyone loves to hate on Trubisky, and I certainly jump in just kind of for the fun of the rivalry type of stuff. But I've seen him in those Lions games. Like, he makes some big time throws every now and then, and you see glimpses of it, and you're like, okay, well, this is probably why they drafted him. Why isn't he just doing it all the time? So I'm not really coming into this year expecting him to be a brand new quarterback like some Bears fans might be. I know there are a lot of Bears fans that have jumped off the ship or never coming back, but yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what he looks like this year, but I'm not really expecting a huge jump in play.
Absolutely. He is known as a line killer. That's what Bears fans call him. So hopefully he can do that Week 1. But my first question is, the Lions had a solid offseason of great acquisitions, I'd say, which included adding Bears Chase Daniel and Nick Williams, veteran linebacker Jamie Collins, as well as former Packers wide receiver Germano Allison. Jeremy, would you mind giving us a brief recap of what General Manager Bob Quinn got done in Detroit this offseason?
Yeah, he was a very busy man. I think the focus of the offseason was really on that defense. It was not good. It was one that allowed Mitchell Trubisky to do what he did, and really he was just kind of overhauling everything. We saw, obviously, they had to trade away Darius Slay because there was some chemistry issues, let's put nicely. He didn't want to be here anymore because of Matt Patricia. So, that's a big loss there. But you bring in Desmond Trufant to replace him. You draft Jeff Okudah, and that actually might be a net positive for Detroit. And then you look on the defensive line. They let Snacks go. Again, he didn't really like what the Lions were running in terms of their defense. They bring in Nick Williams. They bring in Danny Shelton. It's really they've got brand new starters on every level, and I think that maybe the two biggest additions, you mentioned him there, Jamie Collins. This Lions linebacking core has not been good over the past few years, and I think a lot of the reason for that is they haven't had a veteran that knows the system. And Jamie Collins, when he's at his best, might even be a top 10 linebacker in this league. So the Lions are hoping that he knows the Patriot system. He's played under Matt Patricia before. They're hoping he kind of recaptures that in a place that's not New England, because obviously his Browns career did not go so well. And then the other addition was the trade for Duron Harmon, another former Patriots, if you're seeing a pattern here of Matt Patricia's behavior. But he's a guy that solidifies the Lions on the back end. They haven't really had a solid free safety really since, I would say, I don't know, maybe even going all the way back to, I want to say, I don't know. Let's just say it's been a while. And so that will allow a guy like Tracy Walker, who's kind of an up-and-coming safety, to play more his style, which is a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. And so the big question that's on Detroit fans' minds right now is, okay, the Lions' defense is different, but is it better? Because they got rid of some talented guys in Snacks and Slay and replaced them with some guys with question marks. A guy like Nick Williams, who Bears fans probably know really well, they also probably know that he's only really had one successful season. So bringing in a 30-year-old with one good season under his belt is a risk. Bringing in a guy like Danny Shelton, who's only been kind of a rotational guy, and putting him in as your starter is a risk. Same thing with Duron Harmon. He's been the third safety behind two really talented guys in New England. Now he's going to be the starter in Detroit. So there's risks all around, but you can see why the Lions made the moves they did. They certainly needed some change. And if they actually got better this year, it could result in a lot more wins in 2020.
It's kind of funny to me that a lot of your great defensive players are going to leave, due to your head coach being an offensive mastermind. But my first question for you is, the Lions closed off the 2019 season with the 18th ranked offense in the league. What do you expect them to be able to achieve next weekend against the Bears and throughout the season?
I think it should be a lot better. I mean, obviously, those numbers have to be heavily skewed by the fact that the Lions are playing a second string and a rookie undrafted guy for 5 games last year in David Blau. So you mentioned the numbers from Stafford last season. He was on fire. The Lions weren't scoring as many points as they probably should have with Stafford as good as he was. But the key, I think, for the Lions this year is all the changes they made in the running game. So they draft DeAndre Swift, 35th overall, second-round pick. They draft a couple guards, one of which will probably be starting in week 1. They bring in a new right tackle. They bring in essentially a new depth chart on the interior. So the offensive line's going to look a lot different. They've got a bunch of running back threats, including a guy that you guys might know called Adrian Peterson, which I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit. But the Lions are definitely trying to become a more balanced offense, and they've been trying, they've been running the ball a lot. They just haven't had as much success. So with Swift, with Peterson, and Kerryon Johnson still kicking around, they're hoping that they're going to be a more balanced offense and can kind of grind the clock a little more and take the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hands so that he doesn't have to do everything, which he has been for the past basically his entire career.
Before I get to my next question, I want to pass it around the table. Parth, I mean, we haven't seen a healthy Matthew Stafford play against the Bears in some time, so do you think this is going to be a tough test for the Bears' defense?
Yeah, 100%. I think when healthy, Matthew Stafford is a top 10 quarterback. I do think he's better than Kirk Cousins. A lot of Vikings fans would disagree with me on that, but I think Matthew Stafford's very underrated. He has been basically the whole entire team for the Lions for many years, or his whole entire career. A respectable dude. He's doing his thing, and hopefully he has a great season and can stay healthy. But it doesn't start off too well week 1. I think Bears fans would appreciate that.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. I mean, you can't overlook what the Lions have done the last couple of years, and assuming that the Bears are going to be starting Jalen Johnson, the second-round pick, week 1 against Detroit. He's going to have a tough task, going up against guys like Marvin Jones, Kenny Galladay, grizzled veterans in Danny Amendola. You would expect TJ Hawkinson, someone who I was high on a couple of years ago, to continue to improve out of the University of Iowa. They pick up Jesse James recently, and Jeremy brought it up. DeAndre Swift, Adrian Peterson. I mean, you can't even overlook a guy like a Bo Scarborough. So they're looking pretty good, and I didn't even mention Kerryon Johnson's name. So I think it'll be a tougher test than it has been in years past for the Bears' defense. But Jaylen, what do you think about this Lions offense heading into 2020?
Well, I don't know if you remember this, but I've always been a big fan of Kenny Galladay. He went to the high school that was right down the street from my home, that house that I grew up as a little kid. I've always been a big fan of him. I watched him at NIU, and I was really wanted the Bears to draft him. But I'm happy to see him doing good in the NFL. Sadly, it's for one of our division rivals, but that's okay. I've always been a big fan of Matthew Stafford as well. I definitely feel like that the Lions haven't put enough talent around him to be a winning quarterback, but he's still putting up numbers, and like you said, before he got hurt, he was dang near putting up an MVP type season. But other than that, you guys have great wide receivers in Marvin Jones. He showed what he can do. You signed Adrian Peterson, you have Kerryon Johnson, and just drafted DeAndre Swift. I definitely feel like your offense did get better as a whole, but we won't know if it really got better until the season comes around.
Yeah, let's flip to the defensive side of the Detroit's ball. Jeremy talked about how much they wanted to improve that front seven. And on the other hand, the defense finished the 2019 season ranked 26th. So, Jeremy, you look at the Bears this offseason, and a position that they needed to address that's so important in Matt Nagy's offense is the tight end position. They bring in Jimmy Graham, who many would say has regressed, but, compared to the Bears tight ends last year, I mean, we saw Jesper Horsted catching touchdowns on Thanksgiving. He'll be solid. And then they also bring in a second-round pick in Cole Kmet, so the Bears are coming in with a head of steam at the tight end position, at least in regards to what we've seen in training camp in past years. So how confident are you that this Lions defense, with new guys that you mentioned, some Patriot blood in Jamie Collins and Danny Shelton, will be able to slow down Mitch Trubisky and co?
Yeah, I think that tight end matchup could be really, really interesting. I mentioned Tracy Walker, the Lions' young safety, who'll play more in the box now with the addition of Duron Harmon. He's been the defender to watch during training camp. Watching him go against TJ Hawkinson is really like, it's pay-per-view TV. Those guys are really physical with each other, really, really talented guys. So I'm eager to see that matchup. That might be one of my favorite matchups to watch on Sunday, is watching Jimmy Graham go against him specifically. But then the question, as always, is going to be pressure, and that's one of the things the Lions were horrible at last year. Their pass rush win rate was, I think, worst in the league, and the Lions refused to blitz. Now, I feel like with the addition of Jamie Collins and some of these other guys, they're a little more well-equipped to blitz, so Matt Patricia might be a little more willing. They also have a new defensive coordinator this year in Corey Unlin, the former Eagles defensive backs coach. So maybe with him dialing up plays, that they're going to be a little more aggressive there. It's something we're just kind of have to wait and see. But in terms of like elite pass rushers or guys that can really get after the quarterback, that's the one thing the Lions really didn't add this offseason. The one exception maybe there is Julian Okwara, and I don't think he's going to be a guy that you're going to see a lot of in week one. He's going to be more of a guy that you see towards the middle of the season when the Lions really get him going. So in terms of coverage, I think the Lions are a little more well-equipped to handle the Bears' defense. But in terms of maybe getting to Mitchell Trubisky and putting a little pressure, having him make a mistake, I don't know that the Lions are really well equipped to do that this year. And that could result in Trubisky feeling a little comfortable there in the pocket this week.
Yeah, I mean, you said it was an exception that we had are not going to have much trouble with pass rush, but the Lions also have an exception, and that is the Bears had the 27th ranked offensive line in 2019. Kyle Long obviously retires. Jermaine Fetty fills in at that position. I'm not too sure how I feel about that, but Parth, I'm going to pass it back to you. Look, this Lions defense did what they needed to this offseason, outside of, I guess, adding a pass rusher. They bring in some guys with playoff experience. They add some good pieces to the secondary. So what do you think about what they did this offseason on the defensive side of the ball?
I think their secondary got much better. Despite losing Darius Slay, they added Desmond Trufant. They got Jeff Okudah. I think those two are going to be a great cornerback tandem for the future they got there. But I like the pass rushing. It's really weak. But again, the Bears have a very poor offensive line, so they could get to Mitch Trubisky. But yeah, if we look at the division, we got the Bears have Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn, Akeem Hicks. The Vikings got guys like Yannick Ngakoue and Daniil Hunter. The Packers have the Smith brothers. So the Lions are lacking in that position, but I think years coming up they could add there, which would definitely elevate their defense a lot more. But yeah, I'm excited to see how their cornerback tandem plays out. And like he mentioned, their safeties are a bunch of backups trying to become starters, which will be fun to see as well, because a lot of times backup safeties can come in and be great starters, and something they got a lot of Patriot blood, so hopefully that works out for them.
I mean, you want to talk about backup safeties coming in as starters. I don't think anyone expected Deion Bush to start week 1 for the Bears, and it's looking like it's going to go out that way. I do think the Lions improved on defense. Let's start with the obvious. The Lions defense gave up, on average, 400 yards per game last year. I don't know if they're essentially going to do that, especially facing the Bears' offensive line. But Parth, you basically hit it on the head. I think they're bringing in a tight-knit group of players, a lot from New England descent, like Jeremy said. But, I think they're trending in the right direction on both sides of the ball. The question is, I think what the game's going to come down to is, can those linebackers and safeties do enough to stop the Bears' tight ends, and how will the young corners perform on both sides? So, Jaylen, I don't know if there's much left to say, but what do you think about this Lions defense?
You guys basically said everything that I was thinking about bringing in people from New England who knows Matt Patricia's system and might not get mad at what he's doing because they've already been through it and stuff like that. I was just really confused on. I get Darius Slay, probably wanted out, but trading him and just drafting another corner with their first round draft pick. But I want to see how this secondary is without him. Darius Slay has been a very good corner for a very long time in this league. He's intercepted Mitchell Trubisky, multiple times, and I'm just happy that he's not in our division no more. But bringing a guy in Jeff Okudah who went top 3, I think. Yeah, didn't he win third? Yeah, he went top 3 for a reason. And he's obviously a great corner, and hopefully he's not the next Darius Slay and intercepts Bears quarterbacks for years to come.
Yeah, this defense is definitely going to have to step up for Detroit. Jeremy mentioned blitz percentage. Lions were 30th in the league in that last year, 29th in pressure, and also 21st in quarterback knockdowns. So, Parth, I'm going to pass it back to you.
So my second question is, this game is a big one on Sunday. Both teams can desperately use a 1-0 start to start the season. I'm pretty sure Matt Patricia is 0-2 during his first weeks, and so is Matt Nagy. I don't think they both have won week 1 yet, so one coach is going out with a win. But what can the Lions do to win this game?
It's a good question, and yeah, you're right. Matt Patricia definitely needs a good start to the season because, his very first NFL game was the Jets absolutely obliterating the Lions on Monday Night Football. And then last year, they got up to a big lead against the Cardinals, and they actually ended up tying. So you're right that neither coach has gotten a win in week 1.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, Matt Patricia right now is on as hot of seat as he can probably be for a third-year guy. This was a 9-7 team in back-to-back years under Jim Caldwell. He comes in and he's won 9 games in 2 seasons. So that's all you really need to know. Now, how the Lions get out to that win, I think they play the game that they want to play, which is kind of grind out long possessions on offense, convert on third downs in situational football, score touchdowns instead of field goals in the red zone, and just kind of, I really think their game plan is just to keep the ball out of the other team's offense's hands. And it doesn't matter if that man is Aaron Rodgers or Mitchell Trubisky. Like, they just want to grind out long games with long possessions and keep their defense healthy so that they aren't getting run up the score on by a guy like Trubisky. So expect the Lions to just run the ball a lot, run, long drives, but when they need to, obviously unleash Matthew Stafford, because Darrell Bevell's offense does take a lot of deep shots. That was why Stafford was so successful in his 8 games last year is because the deep ball, they were one of the best teams, throwing the ball 20 yards and further downfield. So if the Bears are vulnerable there, they're going to take their shots, no question. But if not, they're going to be perfectly happy just kind of working the middle of the field, working the short yardage, getting Adrian Peterson the rock early on. I said on my podcast just a few minutes ago before I jumped on here that I wouldn't be surprised if Adrian Peterson is the running back that gets the most touches on Sunday, because Swift is dealing with a little bit of injuries. He hasn't been practicing a ton in training camp. I kind of am of the belief that Adrian Peterson is going to take most of the carries away from Kerryon Johnson. I think this team is obvious. I mean, if a team drafts a guy in the second round and then signs Adrian Peterson, what does that say about the guy that's left over? What does that say about Kerryon Johnson? the team is kind of looking ahead, right? So I wouldn't be surprised to see him to be a big part of the plan. And then on defense, it's just cover. Just don't let them beat you deep like they did last year, and they should be all right.
So actually, opposite of Parth's question, like Parth said, both these teams could, definitely need a win coming out of week 1. We need the offense to show why the reason why we started Mitchell Trubisky over Nick Foles and why we brought in all these tight ends for a reason. So, like I said, opposite of Parth's question, what is something that the Bears could do, or the Bears could do for the Lions to lose?
I think it's take advantage of maybe the young secondary there. We mentioned Jeff Okudah plenty, but the reality of the situation is it might be Amani Oruwariye, the Lions' 5th-round pick last year, who a lot of people thought would go a lot earlier in that draft. He might be starting opposite Desmond Trufant right away. Now, I'm not saying, Okudah's a bust or Okudah won't get playing time. I think he will. But Oruwariye has actually been repping ahead of him in training camp. So as a guy he did get 2 interceptions last year, so he has a little bit of promise to him. But it's going to be kind of a new experience for him. The Lions secondary is all very new, so the chemistry hasn't developed there yet. I think that's one thing that we really have to watch out for every team in the NFL. The chemistry of all the new players is not going to be there in week 1. There's going to be a lot of sloppy football in week 1, and given all the roster turnover on the Lions defense, I think that makes them vulnerable, even to a guy like Mitchell Trubisky. And, I'm not going to say anything bad about Allen Robinson. I think the guy's a stud. And without Darius Slay to shut him down for 100% of the game, I think Desmond Trufant's a good cornerback, but I don't think he's a shutdown cornerback like Darius Slay was. So I think the Lions are a little vulnerable there in the secondary. I like the talent overall. I just don't like it yet. I think it's going to take a month or 2 for them to really get settled in with each other. So it could be a fortunate game for Trubisky to start the season off strong.
All right, Jeremy. So we end these ones out always by asking whoever our guest is from the opposing team for a score prediction. So I got to ask you, week 1, how do you think this one plays out?
Man, it's so hard without any preseason games, with only about, I went to probably 6 or 7 training camp practices. That's all that I have of this Lions team. That's all I can, extrapolate for how they're going to be this season. And, I'm reserving the right to change my opinion throughout the week. So, if you see it different in print, then that's why. But, I have to lean on the optimistic side for the Detroit Lions, because I'm a Lions fan. And if I don't have optimism, if I don't have hope, then I'm not sure what I'm doing, because
Makes sense.
This team isn't providing a lot after September. So you got to come in with a little bit of hope. So I do think the Lions offense is going to be explosive this year. Obviously, the Bears defense is going to be one of the tougher that they play this year. So it could be a stalemate there. But in terms of the Lions defense versus the Bears defense, it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, right? We're not really sure how the Bears offense is going to look. It wasn't very good last year. There's not a lot of faith in Trubisky. But the Lions defense was just as equally as bad. And even though they made all those roster turnovers, I think there's still a lot of question marks. So I'm going to go low scoring. Anytime you're going up against the Bears defense, I think it's going to be a low scoring game. And so I will take the Lions 23-16.
Honestly, that score probably makes sense with what a lot of people expect for the Bears' offense. But you guys know who are listening on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts right now that you will get our prediction later in the week in our pregame show coming this Saturday. But that'll basically do it for the Week 1 Meet the Opponents. Jeremy Reisman, thank you so much for joining the show.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. Like I said, I'm excited to finally be talking some matchups, some actual Lions football. It's coming up in less than a week now.
Oh, yeah. So if you guys would like to hear more Lions content from Jeremy, if there are any Lions fans here that have never heard from him before, you can head over to prideofdetroit.com to find his articles and columns, and you can also find him on Twitter at DetroitOnLion. On the other hand, if you are a Bears fan listening and want more content from us, you can head over to our website, beardown.com. We've got a writer on there, Justin Chu. He's our editor-in-chief. He is writing an article on the Detroit Lions that is probably up at the same time as this podcast. So if you want to learn more about the Lions and you want content from us that isn't podcasts or videos, do us a favor and head over to that website, beardown.com. If you want sneak peeks of podcasts from us, want to help us decide on what to record when we aren't recording these weekly podcasts, you can find us on social media. It's a great way to interact with us on Instagram and Twitter at BearDown. And then finally, you can find the links to all of our Bears fan pages on Instagram down in the description. Those are some great follows as well. Parth Shah, Jaylen McClinton, a little bit rusty doing a podcast, honestly. It's been a while since we've recorded one of these, probably about 10 months since we were last inconsistently doing these, but feels good to be back. Any last words?
We're almost here. I mean, a couple sleeps away. Hopefully the Bears can light up the Lions. Matt Nagy is undefeated against the Lions, so let's keep it that way. And let's have a great season, Bears fans.
I was just actually happy to talk to another person about another football team that wasn't the Bears. Now I love my Bears, but talking about them, this whole offseason, kind of gets repetitive. But season is not 6 days away. It's less than 7 days away. I'm extremely happy. I can't wait to go into Ford Field and hopefully get a W. But that's about it.
Yeah, that'll pretty much do it for us. I would like to say before I close it off, if you are listening right now on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and want more content from us, if you head over to YouTube and search Bear Down, we post a ton of extra content on here as well. We're almost at 2.5K subscribers on YouTube as well, so everyone listening on there right now, thank you so much for the support. I would like to say, whatever platform you're on right now, we're going to be making 5-6 podcasts a week. If you want Bears content every day of the week, follow/subscribe on whatever platform you're on. And if you are on YouTube, let's see if we can get 50 likes on this video. If you made it this far, we definitely appreciate you for sticking along with us the entire way. It's been a pleasure to be your host. Once again, my name is Chris Maltby. Bears fans and Lions fans alike, do us a favor and stay safe. Pandemic right now, tough times. There's not much more to say about it. Do all you can to stay safe. And to the Bears fans that are still tuning in, as always, bear down. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.